Ja, goddag og velkommen til Urbania, den 18. kunstmagasin. I dag skal vi snakke med den multimediekunstner Tony Brooks fra Wales. Welcome, Tony, to Urbania.
Thank you, Rui.
Can you define what kind of multimedia artist you are?
What kind of multimedia artist? I guess it's lots of people will have different opinions of what multimedia means, really. And for me, it's very diverse in so much as getting sort of sounds and images and different manipulation of different mediums, and you control it and affect it in different ways. I'm doing very varied projects, as you know, between totally digital presentations and very organic presentations, and like for example we have something lined up for next year with 2,000 trees, Christmas trees coming into our house. That's why the term is very organic, and then many things are very totally digital, like the show we did last year at in the Aarhus Fringe Festival. So it was to define myself as a multimedia artist, it's a very broad spectrum to explain, but it's just to get an idea, and you know, perhaps you want to use certain sounds and certain images, and you get ideas and inspiration from seeing different things. So it's that's how I work it.
But when do you start to be kind of multimedia artist? Because in fact you have been a musician, or you still are a musician. So it was in Wales, or was already in Denmark when you came here?
Well, I was a musician, I was a bass player, and I was in the States. I was playing on a bass, and I got really tired of structure and form in the music that I was doing. I was playing things I didn't want to play to earn a living. And then I started experimenting about the same time as all this multimedia started happening, about the middle 80s. And I was involved I constructed a bass guitar that gave me access to computers and then to synthesizers. It was called a MIDI bass. And that's when it all started, really. And then to use a bass like that, to perform with it within the context that I wanted to, it didn't fit in with jazz or rock or blues. It was very much about trying to develop my own context, and that's where I went then. I just wanted to express myself in different ways. And then it developed. I came here about 8 or 9 years ago, and then I wanted to use my body as the instrument, because the bass sort of got in the way for a while. And so now I work with, I use infrared and ultrasound areas around my body where you can move and get feedback of sound and images, and also different functions of the body like brain waves and muscle tension and heartbeat, things like that. So it's very diverse, but by the middle of the 80s where it started. Yeah.
But then you also start doing a lot of work with handicapped people. And can you tell us a little bit about this work with specifically that one you do in Aarhus and all over the world?
Yeah, well, how all that started was when I was very, very young. I used to play bass, and I had my two uncles in my family who were very severely handicapped. And how it would work is that I would be playing bass, and I'd give them a pedal, and my uncle specifically, he could press the pedal and take my sound out, totally alter my sound. And we used to have this interaction, this communication, because he couldn't speak to me. And I'd say, come on, give me my sound back, and he'd give it back and then take it out again. So we'd laugh together. And getting back to the middle 80s, where I was developing these ideas for the multimedia applications, I was dreaming very much about this interaction. And so the development seemed to come at the same time. And when I started working very much with my body as my way to perform, it was a very natural rollover to allow handicapped people to express themselves in new ways. And it's been really fantastic because where it's at now is that my artistic work is based all around Papagallo, where we are now. And then lots of people have seen the work with different handicap groups. We've sort of worked with in a research project trying to see who it affects, who it doesn't affect, who we can allow to express themselves through this. And we've been involved in a handicapped institute in Aarhus, and it's the activity centre who are multi-handicapped people in there. And that was a big success. And then we've taken it recently across to University of Copenhagen at the Centre for Hjerneskader, and we did a pilot project there, and now we've just been supported for children's research with the project, and then we go back to the adult research starting from January. So it's fantastic to get into an area which perhaps has been untouched before to this level, and we're receiving some wonderful comments from the people involved, from their therapists, their helpers, their families, and from some quite well-known people outside of Denmark who are interested in the concept. And so where we are now is that the sensors that I was using, I've designed a sensor which I think will be even better than what is out there at the moment. And this sensor will allow people to paint through movement and move lights through movement. They can breathe and manipulate multimedia. And if they can't do anything else, they can have a way to express themselves and communicate through multimedia and through the work that we're doing with sensors. And it's very much based on using sensors, but also the senses of the people involved. And when you perform, you have certain senses involved. When you work with a handicapped person, there's other senses involved. It's very much about the communication between the people and how you can let them express themselves through whatever facility they have. Hope that answers the question.
Yes. You speak about Papagallo, and we are in Papagallo workshop or Werksted på dansk. Can you tell us a little bit more? Because you are not only working at Papagallo, you have also your own project with Soundscapes. Can you tell us about these two organizations?
Okay, Soundscapes is my project with handicapped people using multimedia, and that's based here in Papagallo. And Soundscapes came about really from when I was conceptualizing the idea, and I went into a mouse house that was in Aarhus, and then they went to Copenhagen, so I really needed to find a base that could help me keep on developing the project and where it was possible to go. And Papagallo, through friends I found out about, and they accepted me in here, and it's wonderful because you have people who are very I would say geniuses in certain specific things, and electronics and the control of sound, the control of lights. There's some heavy duty computer guys here, and the attitude of the house is such that everybody are musicians or ex-musicians, and we all sort of help each other to do whatever projects that we can do. And as you perhaps know, we just did Roskilde, so that was very much a Papagallo project for Roskilde. And they've asked us to do something again next year now to a bigger scale, which is a nice reflection on what we did over there, because there was 13 people involved from the house. And it's a very special place, and I've done lots of traveling. I've never found a place like this in the world.
Yeah, we know that together it is a place of chaos and creativity.
Really,
and it is to bring some ideas further.
Yeah.
But you also, with Papagallo and in other situations, you also do some exhibitions. I remember the interactive exhibition in Erning Museum, and then in Copenhagen at Arken, if I'm right.
Yeah. That was the idea behind that came about because I think there was a lot of alienation within the art world about specific multimedia elements, and I wanted to try and create an installation where children could interact with their parents, and they could interact with grandparents. But the grandparents didn't have to know a joystick or a keyboard to access the interaction. And so the idea was to make a room, and the room becomes an active space. So as people would go around the space, different things would happen, different sounds, different lights, but also physical things. We had window blinds that would open and show different images. We had 8 monitors where I'd made some videos, and that was interacting a little bit with the people. So it was called The Coil, a Circle of Interactive Light. It ran from about 1998 for about 19 months, and it was at Herning Museum. Then it went to Arken Museum in Copenhagen. Then it went to Esbjerg Museum, and then the Scandinavian Centre. And they told us that about 500,000 people got through there in the 19 months. So that was really very positive for us, and we had some great feedback from that. From lots of schools would go down there, and again it was accessible to disabled people in wheelchairs, where they could go around the space and get some form of interaction. And it was very interesting also to watch people in space, because the body language of people, when a certain movement gives them a certain feedback, it becomes very interesting to watch and try and say, okay, you'd be in the space and maybe it would crash. I'd go across and boot it up in Arc, and then we'd open the doors again and people would come in and you could see someone. Okay, he's a theatre person. The way he reacts. Okay, he's an accountant. He's a lawyer. This type of feeling, and it was really lots of fun doing it. And again, it was Papagallo that put it together. I just get the ideas and design it and do a little bit in there, but Papagallo couldn't have done it without them. Again, yeah.
But I also remember experiment we make at Filmwerksted with the flamenco dancer, dancer and the infrared beams.
Yeah.
Can you tell me what was your idea about that?
Okay, well that was Camilla, and the idea, because I love experimenting with different ways of trying to get this interaction going, and I'd met Camilla and I'd seen her dance, and she was a very fine flamenco dancer, and the idea behind it was to create a little space on the floor. And rather than the sensors I'm using now, which are three-dimensional, these were just what we call single-hit sensors. So we made a little square on the floor with black tape, which gave her an indication of where the lines were. And then she was breaking these lines on the floor with her feet, and also trying to integrate it into a composition of the flamingo. I believe it started when she opened a persian, a window blind. And it was a special window blind because that activated an Indian instrument, and that stays all the way through the composition until the end when she raises her skirt and totally covers the window blind, because that type of sensor was based on light, and by closing the light off, the sound goes. So you had that going all the way through it, and the sounds we used on the floor, I seem to remember, was percussive sounds like a tabla and different Indian drum sounds. And she would click her heels and feet through these areas, and it was very, very hard to do. It was really, really hard to do, and she did a great job. And then she moved to Copenhagen, so we didn't do it again after that. But it was very interesting to do, yes.
also remember in '97 when we make the first program for in DRTV, Rendezvous, where you wait from 11 o'clock in the evening until 6 o'clock in the afternoon, where we have you making all this kind of strange music with things in your head and so on, and everybody was saying, "What is that?" And you remember?
That was early days, as you're saying, and it was what it was about was I put sensors on my head, and I was using different. It's so hard to control brain waves, but the sensors pick up on the different states that you go through, the alpha beta state, and that signal was going to a computer, and it was making a type of sound that's it's like a fragmented sound collage, and that was going on as the foundation for the piece. Then I had the sensor on my chest for my heartbeat. I had sensors on my hands, and those are what you call like a biofeedback signal that you get. Then I had 2 3-dimensional sensors under each hand. Then on my feet I had pedals controlling the volume to give it some dynamism. Then we also had the signal from the computer going to some Martin lights. And I was controlling the gobos, the shape of the scene of each light scene. So it was like, again, this sound and picture collage. I think we also had an oscilloscope going. So the analog sound from the synthesizer was going into an oscilloscope, and I think we used that as an image blend at one time as well. I remember the hand was going like this, and then the oscilloscope comes in. So that's a long time ago.
Yes.
I had my white kimono on, I think, for that one. Yeah.
But there's also everybody was very surprised that you have been waiting so many hours that you could go on, that we could start filming you. And you were not protesting, you were quiet in the corner reading your books, and so
well, it's one of these things. I think that it's the type of art I try and do in the performance stuff is very hard for people to understand. So it's so nice when you get a chance to show it, and when you said to come down and show it, it's nice to try and think, okay, what can I do? I'll try the light thing and the image thing, to say to people out there that if they want to explore diverse art, get out there and do it. And the waiting side of things, it was nice to see how you guys put things together, and I know it's hard work to get everything together anyway, but it was nice to do it, and nice to look back on. Yeah.
But I heard many people saying that well, what Tony Brooks does is not art. Well, I'm not agreeing with them, but anyway, they say that it's because maybe, and you probably have met many times people who have this meaning about this.
Sure.
How do you think about that? Is art, or what is that?
Isn't it this thing very often you ask people, can you define art?
Yeah.
Where are the limits on what art means? For me, it's been about 25 years being involved in different forms of art, very much from the music side in the beginning. And where I'm at now, it's learning and discovering. And the way I work is very perhaps spontaneous, and I get an idea and I try and realize it through very quickly, because otherwise it loses a certain quality that I like. And the type of art I'm doing, I really think it's I don't think too much about the audience. It's totally non-commercial art. It's very much about my self-expression for myself, and it's the thing I did. I'll give an example. Last year, it was in Festu, and they had a certain theme about the wall, and I made a proposal to them, and it wasn't accepted because it was probably too diverse. And I wanted to bring up some Germans from East Germany and West Germany, and to discuss what happened to them when the wall breaks down. And as you know, I've been in Korea, so I want to bring people from North and South Korea, because you still have the DMZ, which is this zone, the last Cold War symbol. And I thought to have a synergy between these 4 sort of nations of what happens to artists when it's split and when it comes together, and then when it's still split. That was the proposal, and I thought it was a really nice proposal. They didn't accept it, and I felt very strongly about it because I have friends in these countries. So then I did my installation was at the Scandinavian Centre, so I created a room there where I did a one-man show called Behind the Wall, and I did a write-up saying about my thoughts, how I wanted to express it, because virtually they said no to it. So I said it was like a Festu Fringe type of event, and it was I created a space for me to go into and explore movement in a very, very small, detailed way. And I think we cancelled 2 of the 14 performances because nobody came. A couple of times we had 1 person, but sometimes we had about 20, 25 people. And then they could come from the performance space into the installation and try the art themselves, so that they can understand what I was trying to do much more. And lots of people who came, they really enjoyed it. I had some fantastic letters back from it actually, and about how they felt they were very close, and it was a very open art form. And it's, you know, to define the art I'm doing is selfish art perhaps, and it's I've just found a way that I really want to express myself. And the rollover to working with the handicapped people and disability, for me it's given me a richness in life beyond art, but it's allowing people who otherwise cannot access art to express themselves through art.
But many times these people just accept art if it's standardized and recognized officially, and you are moving still in a very underground level, in fact. So it's maybe the reason why some people say it like that.
Yeah, it's sometimes if someone paints a painting and they're a certain name, the painting is great because it's a name. All this, you know, the boxes art gets put into, it's like music, trad jazz, you know, cool jazz, swing jazz, and to put art into boxes, I hate all that. Part of society that uses boxes all the time, and that's why it's good, you know, because what you're doing with the intercultural side of things, it's getting away from these boxes, and that's a bit like the music I used to do. That was underground as well when I first came here with the 10 person band from 10 different countries, and that was just spontaneous creation within the musical field, and they would have videos on stage to play with, and it can be called underground, but those people that want to access it, you know, if we can keep giving them a chance to access that world, youngsters can come and, you know, they start having ideas and different inspirations. And with the internet, there's lots of underground art on the internet now, so that gives you your channel to put stuff out there as well. So that's really exciting to keep exploring that, what we can do with perhaps presenting my art on the internet, or perhaps presenting some of the work with handicapped people on the internet. And I do lots of research out there to find what's the underground scene.
So probably in the future we'll see you playing with the nanotechnology and things like that. We're still very underground, very, 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 very.
Yeah, sometimes they've been doing lots of this interactive musicians or graphic artists via the web, so there's some real-time interaction going. And one thing I'd like to have been involved in was like the Numas Festival, when they term it as new music, and for them to open that door up a bit wider to more experimental. And again, if you're not recognised as a name, sometimes that's very hard to get in there as well. But if you've got an idea of some good art using this crazy stuff I do, Ruby, just let me know, we'll do it.
But the thing is that even if you are participating a lot in foreign countries with different activities concerning your work, and one of that you are also going to participate in the Congress in Sydney, which is the Paralympics Congress in Sydney. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Okay, well, in 1996, to start with, I did some work at Culture Boo. It's a little bit of a long story, but it's this story to get there. And I made a proposal for Trevor Davis of us to do a real-time satellite link between Culture City Copenhagen and the first ever Cultural Paralympics. And they accepted it. The budget was 3.1 million krona, and they accepted it, but said, we can't give you money to get there, to get the project, but if you get it, then we'll give you the money. So we went across and we got the gig. Then we came back and they'd spent the money. So I went out there and did it anyway with the people I had involved. And while out there I met the director for the Cultural Olympics, a guy called Jonas Jones. He was up there from Australia, checking out what art forms were going on. He liked what we did, and he said, I'd really like to bring it down to Sydney for 2000. Okay, great. So and now we're down there for 15 days doing presentation and performances. It's in the Olympic Pavilion in Sydney, and then at the same time I've been asked to do a lecture at the Science Congress, which is about, the theme of it is to push your limits, optimizing disabilities through science and technology, optimizing your potential through science and technology. And it's a perfect conference which is running parallel to the Parallel Olympics for us. So it's it's a chance to present it to the general public, and it's also a chance to present it to some heavy-duty academics that would be very interested in what we're trying to do. I think we've had some great feedback already from them, and to stand up there as an old musician doing some experimental art in front of sort of scientists and philosophers is funny. It's like I told you about for next year for this European Culture Capital thing. That's a similar type of thing, and there's nine countries involved in that, plus Holland, plus I'm going down there from here. So it's again presenting on a forum where it's public, but it's also presenting to perhaps like-minded people who are thinking about how you can use technology to improve quality of life for people.
Now we hear about all these projects, these fantastic ideas, and from where do you get support to realize your ideas? Or did you get any
from not enough people, really. The support is, I get lots of help in Papagallo, you know. Ernst, the leader, he produces most of the art events that I do, and I'm based here so that the projects I get are through the house. So we try and get support in the house. When you do something like Roskilde, you get support from Roskilde, and it covers expenses type of thing for the house to what it costs. Stuff like the Sydney trip, now that's coming off. IBM, who's been supporting the work for the last 3 years, they're taking us down there, and then IBM Denmark take us down there. IBM Australia take over, then they give us the equipment, they give us the venue, and help us at the cultural events that we're doing down there. And then because we're down there, then we can do the conference without having any expenses for ourselves. We just do a signing up fee and then go and present it down there. So where there's a will, there's a means.